Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the importance of using a detailed contract when working with contractors. For newer real estate investors, one of the most critical aspects of managing a successful renovation project is working effectively with contractors. A detailed contract can protect your investment and ensure that the project runs smoothly. Here are 6 reasons why. Number 1, clear scope of work. A detailed contract outlines the specific tasks the contractor is responsible for, preventing misunderstandings about what is and isn't included in the project. Number 2, defined timeline. Including a timeline in your contract helps set clear expectations for when each phase of the project should be completed, reducing the risk of delays. Number 3, budget management. A well-defined budget within the contract prevents unexpected costs and allows you to track expenses against the agreed-upon amount, keeping the project financially on track. Number 4, quality standards. Setting quality standards in the contract ensures the contractor delivers work that meets your expectations and industry standards, minimizing the need for costly corrections. Number 5, conflict resolution. A contract often includes clauses on how disputes will be resolved, providing a structured way to handle conflicts that may arise during the project. And number 6, legal protection. A contract is a legally binding document that protects both parties, providing a foundation for legal recourse if the contractor fails to fulfill their obligations. So, using a detailed contract with your contractors is essential for managing expectations, timelines, budgets, and quality, and for providing a framework for resolving disputes. It acts as a safety net that can save you from potential headaches and financial loss, helping ensure your renovation projects are successful. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Mark Podolsky, also known as the Land Geek. Mark is widely considered to be the country's most trusted and foremost authority on buying and selling raw, undeveloped land. Today, Mark will share his journey into the world of buying, selling, and leasing raw land as an investment. He has actively invested in real estate and raw land for almost 20 years and has completed over 6,000 unique transactions in that time. It's my pleasure to have him back on the show, so welcome, Mark Podolsky.
Jen Josie.
What's up?
What up? It's such a pleasure to be back here with you again. Thank you so much.
I am so excited, Mark, to have you on because I have so many questions about land today. I'm actively looking at land myself, so I'm like, who's my land people? So I am thrilled to have you back on here and your badassery as well. So Mark, tell the audience how you got involved with real estate and why you focus on raw land investments.
Okay, so Jen, let's rewind the tape 25 years. So it's 2000. I'm a miserable, micromanaged, 45-minute commute to work and back investment banker, specializing in mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups. And Jen, it got so bad for me. I wouldn't get the Sunday blues, anticipating Monday coming around, like the Friday blues, anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having you back at work on Monday. So my firm hires this guy. He's telling me that as a side hustle, he's buying up raw land, pennies on the dollar. He's flipping them online and he's making a 300% return on his money. And I'm looking at companies all day long. And a great company, great, has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Average company's 10%. I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So of course I don't believe him. I've got $3,000 saved up for car repairs. I do exactly what he's helped me do. I buy 10 half-acre parcels and average price of $300 each. I flip them online and they all sell for an average price of $1,200 each. It worked 300%. So I took all that money, went to another auction, and this is in Arizona where I live. And again, it's 2000, there's no one in the room. And I'm buying lots of acres for nothing. And I made over $90,000 cash on that one deal. So I go to my wife at the time and she's pregnant. And I say to her, honey, I'm going to quit my job and become a full-time land investor. And she said, absolutely not. So I said, okay. So it took 18 months for the land investing income to exceed the investment banking income. And then I quit and I've been doing it full-time ever since. And I can really explain to you why I love it.
Well, let's rewind for a second because you said you still worked for how many months? You said 18 months?
18.
Yes, because listeners, this is huge because a lot of people think, oh, I can watch the TV shows, I can learn how to flip houses, and you quit your job a little too soon. So I do think that's important. Plus, you had a baby and a wife that you had to worry about. So huge. So land. Let's talk. What do you mean by flipping land? What does that entail?
Okay, so let's use you as a case study, Jen. So you're in North Carolina, right?
Yes.
Now, let's assume that you own 5 acres of raw land where I live in Arizona, and you owe $200 in back taxes. So you're advertising two important things. Number one, you have no emotional attachment to the raw land. You're in North Carolina, the property's in Arizona. And number two, you're financially distressed in some weird way because we don't pay for things like our property taxes. We don't value them in the same way. As a result, the county treasurer keeps sending you a notice saying, Jen, badassery, Jen, if you don't pay your property taxes, you're going to lose that property to a tax lien or tax deed investor. So all I'm going to do is look at the comparable sales on your 5-acre parcel for the last 12 to 18 months. I'm going to take the lowest comparable sale, let's say it's $10,000, and divide by 4. And that's going to get me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety. So I'm going to send you an actual offer of $2,500. Now, you accept it. Why? Because for you, $2,500 is better than nothing. In reality,
or negative 200 because you got to pay.
Or negative 200, right? Because
exactly.
You got to pay taxes. So, but in reality, 3 to 5% of people are going to accept my quote unquote top-down offer. But now that you've accepted it, we have to go through due diligence or in-depth research. I have to confirm that you still own the property. Back taxes are only $200. There's been no breaks in the chain of title. There's no liens or encumbrances. I have this big property checklist. I'll outsource it to my team in Jamaica. It costs about $11. And they are, yeah, exactly. And they're connected to an American title company. Now, if it was more than, say, $5,000, I'd take no title risk. And I would just close traditionally through a title company. But it's only $2,500. I'll take a little risk. No worries. Now everything checks out. I send you a check for $2,300. I send the treasurer a check for $200. I own it free and clear. Now, Jen, I'm going to make a cash flow like a rental home, but with no headaches. So I've got a built-in best buyer. Do you know who it is?
No.
The neighbors. So I'm going to send out neighbor letters saying, hey, here's your opportunity. Protect your privacy, protect your views, know your neighbor. Oftentimes the neighbors will buy. Now, if they don't buy, I'll go to my buyers list. If the buyers list doesn't buy, I'll go to a little website you may have heard of. It's called Meta or Facebook, buy-sell groups in the marketplace. And then I just go to the lands, land.com, landmodo.com, landandfarm.com, landsamerica.com, landcentury.com, landflip.com, landhub.com. These are platforms where people buy and sell raw land. But the secret is in the pricing. So all I'm going to ask for is a $2,500 down payment for someone else to control that 5-acre parcel, formerly owned by the Jen Josie. And then I'll make it a car payment. Let's say $249 a month at 9% interest for the next 60 months. So we have this one-time sale. We're going to get our money out on the down payment. We could go 6 to 10 months out. And now we're getting $249 a month at 9% interest over the next 60 months. And Jen, no renters, no rehabs, no renovations, no rodents. And because we're not dealing with a tenant, we're exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act, all this onerous real estate legislation. So the game that we're playing is, can we create enough land notes where our passive income exceeds our fixed expenses? And then we're working because we want to, not because we have to.
Okay, you unloaded a lot right there. And get it, lot. Okay. So funny you say that, because right in my neighborhood, I live in a historic neighborhood in downtown Raleigh, and there's a train track in the back of the neighborhood, and there was some land, like a strip of land, and then that's where the houses were. So they're landlocked, so people can't drive a car there. And who did they sell it to? My neighbor Bob bought 2 lots behind his property, and he actually put Christmas lights out there this year. It was very lovely, but he, like you said, snatched that up right away so that nobody can build back there. He's got that extra land. If he wants to throw some chickens back there, he can do that. So excellent. Now, I want to get into the other ones. Who would be buying, say, this raw land behind Bob's house? That, like, what would they use it for? And why would they want to put $2,500 down and then pay a monthly fee for it? So give me that reason.
Right. So who's buying the land? Right. So basically, there's lots of people that want raw land. And so the majority of the people are buying it, in my experience, because it's kind of like man jewelry, right? They like the way it feels to own 40 acres or 5 acres or a half acre, whatever the size is, and it's affordable for them. And they just know, maybe I'm going to go out there one day, I'll use it recreationally, we'll camp out there. Military people love this type of land because, they want to be off grid. Talking about the off gridders love it. People that don't love people love it. People that watch Yellowstone love it. They want to have land. And so there's just a lust for land in this country. And so, Jen, in 25 years, I've never been stuck with a piece of raw land.
Wow.
There is a pig for every barn. They all sell at the
my
right price.
Goodness. That is great. And you said the key is in the pricing. So is raw land considered unimproved land?
Raw land is absolutely, it's considered unimproved.
And what does that mean?
That means that you won't go on the HGTV or the DIY network and see me on Flip This Land, because before picture is raw land, the after picture is raw land. So we're not putting up a fence, we're not dropping in a septic, we're not putting in infrastructure, we're making literally no improvements.
Got it.
That is raw undeveloped land. Now, if you wanted to, you could, but that's not the model that I teach.
Got it. All right. And that's where I am right now, because I want to buy land to build on. And by the way, can we just take a total left turn here for a second and talk about percolation tests? And this is what kills me on all of those Facebook groups and the things that you're talking about. It says it passed a perk test, but they spell it PERK, and it's PERC. I'm sorry. I just had to get that off my chest. The former school teacher me, I'm like, come on, it's PERC. It's for percolation, though, right? Percolating.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That came out of nowhere. It's just one of those pet peeves of mine. Like, spell it correctly, please. All right. So I am actively looking for land, and say, I'm sure you sell to people, buyers like me, where the land can perk, PERC, and I could put in a septic system. I can do tiny homes or whatever it is that is buildable on there. But what are some things for the buyer like me that's super important, that, like, say you come across some waterfront property, land in North Carolina, because that's what I'm actively looking for.
Right.
What are some things some selling points for me?
So, you're gonna be sold basically by the location of that land.
Yes.
And does it meet Jen Josie's badassery needs? Right. So, I'm not going to sell you the land. I'm just going to see, does this meet your needs? So, land sales is very unsophisticated in the sense like we're just being like a doctor and diagnosing and asking a bunch of questions because we're not in the convincing business. This is an asset that's one of one and it's unique. So if you don't want it, buyers are like the bus. There's just another one down the pike.
Right.
So, and people feel that. So oftentimes when I'm selling a piece of land, they can sense like, I could care less if you buy it or not. Is it right for you? Great. We'll be great to work with. If not, I'll tell you. So if I have a piece of raw land that's 30 miles from services and you're telling me, oh yeah, I want to move out there in 2 months with my 5 kids and my husband and my husband's got health problems. I'm like, no, this is not for you. This is dangerous. You're too far from services. And then they're like, oh, really? And so as soon as I take it away, they want it even more. And then there's like, oh, okay, well, here's somebody that's really looking out for my best interest. So land sales is like tennis, but I jump over the net and we're playing doubles together. So it's not like you're hitting the ball and I'm hitting it back to you. It's like, hey, I'm on your team and let's make sure that we win together. And if we can't win together, I'm going to tell you, I'm not the guy. I don't have your land that you're looking for, but I'll help you find it. Go to a website like land.com.
Perfect. So for me, and this is where I was getting at with that question, which I did not ask very well, but I don't want anything that's landlocked because I want to build like a destination type setting for companies to go on retreats or family reunions, things like that. So I'm looking for something that is accessible from a road. It is a major bonus if it already has septic and electricity run to the property, things like that. That is not what you buy, correct?
No, that's expensive. So I'm not buying that asset 25, 30 cents on the dollar. Like if I have that property in Raleigh, North Carolina, I'm going to the biggest, baddest broker in town, and I'm selling it 110, 120 cents on the dollar.
All right, now let's get into the leasing aspect of it because you will buy it and then lease it to people. And what is the reasoning behind that with the leases?
Yeah, the leases, I'm just owner financing it. I'm the bank. Because you can't go to a bank and get a land loan. And so if you have a job, great, you can afford this land payment to me. And essentially, that's where we get that passive income piece of it. So cash is great, but like, all right, I got to pay taxes and I got to do this again. And it's a hustle. So the more land notes I have, the better.
Very good. And how do you find these parcels? Are they even parcels? How do you find land?
Yeah. So basically, let's just be honest. Nobody wakes up and thinks to themselves, boy, I'd like some raw land today in Iowa, unless you live in Iowa, right? So I want to first start in counties where I know I'm going to get the biggest buyer pool. And that's going to be in those sunshine states where there's just a ton of inexpensive raw land. So I'm talking about Arizona, Texas, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, parts of California, not all of California, at least the parts that are, they're still there.
Right.
And then you've got Washington and you have Oregon and you have parts of the Midwest and Florida. So I'm avoiding a lot in the Northeast. I'm avoiding any issues in, any sort of EPA issues with Superfund sites where people could be dumping in say like New Jersey or Ohio or Pennsylvania. So I would avoid those areas. And then I'm starting at a county, right? So I'm going to go to a website like landmodo.com and I'm going to see where are the other people like me buying land because I want to know definitively there's a market there. So I know, if Mark is selling land in XYZ County, I should probably start there. So imagine that you and I are going to go fishing together and there's, 13 boats on the lake. 3 of the boats are over on one part of the lake. They're not catching any fish. And the other 10 boats are on the other part of the lake and they're catching all the fish. We have to decide which part of the lake are we going to go to. Well, it's counterintuitive, but we're going to go where they're catching fish. So that's how I would start my county research. As far as getting the data, you can go to a website like datatree.com/landgeek. You can get a discount there. But there's all types of ways to get the data. List source, you can go straight to the county. And you want to get a list of real property owners, and then you're going to scrub that list in the sense like by use code, let's say VL for vacant land. Then we're going to get rid of all that commercial property, industrial property, residential property, and we're just left with our vacant land. Then we're going to do one more scrub by APN number or assessor's parcel number by subdivision. Because when we're sending out offers, I don't want to send somebody with 40 acres the same offer as 5 acres. That 40-acre parcel person's going to send me back glitter in the mail. So then I'm going to price my list, and then I'll use a software like lgpass.com. It's a CRM software to automate sending out those offers and then tracking my response rate going from there.
So that's leading into my next question is how you leverage systems and automation to simplify this. And for the listeners out there that this sounds really great to them and they would love to leave their job in 18 months. So what other systems do you have and how is this like truly automated for someone like that who is still working a 9-to-5 job?
Yeah, so we're going to use 3 levers. We're going to use other people's time, software and automation, and other people's money. So the first lever is going to be other people's time. So inexpensive virtual assistants who are already trained in the land business and they're already out there. And so there's companies out there like LandVA for You, there's landmasters.us, and you could start there. And then you could start hiring internally. So there are agencies of labor from that standpoint. Then the second piece is the software. So I have my own software that you could use on the front end, lgpass.com, and on the back end that is called geekpay.io. It's a set and forget it payment system to manage your notes and loan accounting tracking software.
Fancy.
So just right there, now you're 90% automated.
Yes.
Just with the other people's time, software and automation. And then the other lever is how do we get other people's money? And that's going to be once you've done it yourself a few times, you have a track record, you're going to go to Aunt Jen and she's got a lot of cash in the bank and it's not earning any interest. And you say, hey, look, could you give me some advice? I'm giving investors 12 to 18% on their money. We're going to structure it like this. Do you know of anybody who could be benefiting 12 to 18%? It's backed by raw land. I mean, from a risk reward ratio, it's unbelievable. And Aunt Jen be like, well, how about me? And there you go. So I never ask anybody for money because they'll give you advice. But if you ask them for advice, they'll give you money.
That was gold, Mark. I love that. So last time you were on the episode, it was episode number 109, and this is episode 238. And you were talking about one piece of land that I don't even know if you'll remember this. It was right next to railroad tracks or something, and then you made a bunch of money off it. So what are some examples of past deals that you've done where you bought it so cheap and then out of nowhere something happened, Costco moved into the neighborhood and now everybody wants to be over there, or Amazon, or not Costco, but Amazon, something like that. Any crazy success stories like that?
I mean, I've got a lot of success stories kind of like that. I'll tell you one that's really interesting to me because it sort of highlights the fact like there's a pig for every barn. So I was early on in my career and I screwed up my due diligence and I bought 40 acres on the side of a mountain in New Mexico. And, only 15 of the acres were actually accessible. The other 25, it's a mountain. And I bought it for $2,500. And I thought, there's no one who's going to buy a side of a mountain for $2,500. So I put it up on eBay at $1, no reserve for 10 days. And I thought, I'll be so happy if I get my money back out. So the first day it got bid up to $2,500.
Oh my
By the
goodness.
10th day, it was at $32,500. And I'm freaking out thinking, how did I misrepresent this property? Why would anybody want this? Like the map is showing it's on the side of a mountain. I'm highlighting the flaws. So as soon as the auction's over, I call the winning bidder and I'm like, hey, you realize this is on the side of a mountain, right? Like you can't really access it. He's like, it's perfect. I'm like, what do you mean? It turned out he was a film director in LA and he wanted to film out there. He didn't want to deal with the county and getting permits. And this was easier and cheaper than actually dealing with the county.
Mark, this is exactly the type of story that you told me last time that like blew my mind, but that is perfect because you really don't know. And eBay, who would think to go on eBay to buy land? I absolutely love that. That was great. So let's get into your book, Dirt Rich. And did you write a
Yes.
second one?
I did Dirt Rich too. It's just been released. I'm still working on the back end of it, so I haven't really officially launched it, but it is on Amazon.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, Dirt Rich, because this is a great book, and you are getting me a link to share with the listeners where they can get it for just the shipping. Is that correct?
That's right. It's free. Just pay the shipping.
Ah, so great. So, what inspired you to write Dirt Rich, and then what can the readers expect to gain from it?
So what inspired me to write it was really telling my story. It's sort of a cautionary tale because when I first started in the land investing business, I lacked a lot of humility. I made money very easily, and I had what I call Parkinson's law of money. So the more money I made, the more money I spent. And what I realized was I was searching for this feeling of enough, right? And I thought, oh, it's going to be all these external things. I'm going to get the big house and the big cars and the nanny and the housekeeper and all these things in the private school. And I built this huge overhead and this treadmill for myself. And then said I write about this in Dirt Rich, and I realized like there's nothing out there that was really going to satisfy me. It was this internal feeling of me not feeling like I was enough. And so in 2010, I lost 50% of my income. People were, Great Recession. They're like, hey, it's between paying this note or food. I'm going to choose food.
Right.
And so I had all this overhead and I had to sell the house, sell the car. Really, the land business was still profitable, but I had to whittle down my lifestyle to something that was more sustainable. And in so doing, I realized like, oh my gosh, all these simple things like spending more time with my kids, playing charades instead of going out, every other night because I could, was much more satisfying. And then, so that's sort of like the first part of Dirt Rich is like my story. Don't make these mistakes. And then talking a little bit more in depth about the land business and the aspects of buying the land, marketing the land, selling the land.
So, Dirt Rich, I love it. And you have Dirt Rich 2 coming out. Did this lead to a coaching program? Do you coach people on how to buy raw land?
Yeah. So after really doing the business for about 11 years, got a call from a guy named Tori. I was in vacation, Northern California, and he's on my website. And I'm like, hey, you want to buy some land? He's like, no, I want you to teach me how you do what you do. I'm like, well, I don't really teach people. And he's like, what if I pay you this? I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, let me think about it. So I go to my wife. I'm like, hey, this guy wants me to teach him the land business. She's like, why would you do that? You're going to create your own competition. I'm like, good point. I'm like, let's put on our investment banker hats and just analyze like how big is this market? How many people could actually enter it before I'm affected? And so doing the analysis, there's billions of acres of raw land available. You couldn't think of a more boring real estate niche. And realize like you, me, a million people could be in this niche. We'll all run out of money before we run out of deal flow. There's no private equity groups. There's no hedge funds. There's no big money in it. They have too much money. So I then in teaching it, my first deal with Tori, he made $300,000. It changed his life, and it felt so good for me. I'm like, that feels better for me
I was going to say
than
it
me
probably
closing my
changed
own
your
deals.
life.
It changed
Yes.
my life, and so I formalized teaching this program, and I really have this mission of helping everyone along wherever you are on the economic spectrum, solve not just your money problems, but your time problems. And I think once that's done and your passive income exceeds your fixed expenses, you can really move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the self-actualization and then really discover what your greatest purpose is in life. And you've got that time, you get that money, and you get that energy to do it.
And I bet you are so good at educating others because you have that nice balance of humor in there, but you are knowledgeable. You know what you're doing. 6,000 plus deals that you've done. So I'm so glad to know that you have coaching on here as well. And how would people, if the listeners are interested in learning directly from you, what's the best way for them to find you?
I think the best way is just thelandgeek.com. And they can
Perfect.
also go and get the book as well.
Very, very good. All right. So before we go into the second part of the podcast here, what are some common misconceptions about people investing in raw land?
I
Dun, dun,
think
dun.
the common misconception is, well, who's buying it? Why would anyone want this?
Yeah, this is one that
And
still makes me go like,
yeah,
but when you brought up the man jewelry, and like I said, I'm actively looking for land, and this island popped up. Like, my purpose of buying land is to build a destination for people to go to and visit and spend time with me. How the hell am I going to get people on a damn island? But I spent hours looking at this island. I'm like, what can I do? How can I get people there? So I was really checking out the man jewelry myself. So I'm sorry. I cut you off,
yeah.
but so misconceptions, who are
That's
the
the big,
buyers?
yeah.
Yes.
So who's going to buy this? And oftentimes we think, well, if I don't like this land, no one else is going to buy it.
Right.
And I always use the analogy of McDonald's. I don't personally eat McDonald's, but would I buy a McDonald's franchise? Absolutely, I would, because they're selling a billion hamburgers to people. It's just not something that I would do. So there is a massive market for it, but just because you don't think you would ever buy a piece of rural land doesn't mean that someone else at the right price wouldn't. And I
And
think that's the common misconception.
that's huge. And a girlfriend of mine, Joanna, her family owned over 100 acres up in New York, northern part of New York, and nothing can be built on this land. It is just, but she sold it for over $1 million. Sorry, Joanna, I'm calling you out of the podcast here, but sold it for over $1 million, like well over what they thought they could get for it. And they just want to hunt. They want to hunt on the land. So
Yeah.
that's another major reason. What are some other reasons people buy raw land?
Yeah. So all the recreational reasons,
Yes.
hunting and fishing and camping is a big one. A
There's a
lot of
lot of
times it's
there's a lot of spots on the beach on the like ocean lots that no one can build on, but people are like, I want to buy that piece of land so I can sit out there with my little chair and umbrella. But anyway, sorry, keep going.
yeah, absolutely. And then think about like, the whole land banker, right? It's like, how many times have you looked at your own town and there's like, growing up, like it was just farm and there's no one out there. And then 20 years later, it's, development happens. So people speculate and they want to buy out there because they think one day maybe something will happen out there as well. So you've got the dream of, either I'm going to do something with it or the dream that it's going to, make me a millionaire one day.
Mark, this is awesome. So for the listeners who are intrigued by this raw land investment, what's the first step that they can take today to start getting involved with raw land investments?
Well, the first thing you've got to do is get educated.
Yes.
That's the first thing. So I would say if you're a really good place to go again is going to be, I hate to shamelessly, self-promote, but like go to landgeek.com and we have a free course and start there. And then just dip your toe and see if it even resonates with you. It might not, but at least you've spent a little bit of time and very little money to learn if it is right for you or not.
And plug away, Mark, because this is not a very wide, people going out and like going right after raw land. A lot of people see raw land and think, I can't do anything with that. On to the next. So absolutely plug yourself away and go on to Amazon and check out Dirt Rich, and then coming soon, Dirt Rich 2. And definitely Mark is your man to educate you on this. I don't know anybody else in over 200 plus episodes who come on here and just talk about raw land. And I keep thinking about my friend Bob in the back of the neighborhood. We had a progressive cocktail party for New Year's, and he literally had a map with the two lots that he purchased out there so people could see that he is so proud of that. He can't do anything and he doesn't want to do anything. And he needed someone like you to sell that to him. So I do think this is fantastic, and check it out, everyone. We are going to move to the second part of the podcast here, which is what makes Mark Podolsky a badass, which you are. And the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life? And you can't say the same answers as last time. We talked about that before.
So
we don't remember.
I'll tell you a book I just read that I think is fantastic, and I think it's making a big difference. It's Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Wynn. Why Your Thinking is the Beginning and End of Your Suffering. And he was the first one to sort of talk about, I like to meditate. And he's like, you don't need to meditate. He's like, just be aware of, are you just spinning out and thinking versus thought? It's like, and he kind of addresses the fact that we don't need to be thinking all the time. In fact, oftentimes when we're in our flow states, we're not thinking, and that's when we're most productive. And so I really enjoyed that book.
Great.
Does it need? I don't know if it moves the needle that much for me.
But it was eye-opening.
But it was eye-opening. Yeah, I think it's really helpful. Yeah.
Definitely. I love books like that.
Yeah.
All right. The first A in badass is for advice. You've given us great advice, but what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received is my mom. And she'll say this all the time. She's like, Mark, life is not a dress rehearsal. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
As a former music teacher, I like that. We had many dress rehearsals. So excellent advice, Mom. Thank you for that. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives Mark to be successful?
My drive is to help as many people as I can, to free as many people as I can to get out of what I call solo economic dependency, which means if the person not working, they're not making any money. So
say that one more time. The what?
Solo economic dependency, which means if the person not working, they're not making any money. So, you've got your W-2 job people, you've got your solopreneurs, you've got the rich people who've solved their money problems, not their time problems, doctors, lawyers, dentists. I would help everybody.
I think there is definitely an avenue for that. All right. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
So I am working on the third book, Zen Geek.
Stop it.
Yeah. How can we strive and be like a duck, right? Calm above the surface, but striving furiously below, right? And enjoying that journey. So I'm writing that, and I'm enjoying the process.
I am so excited to read that one. I love that. The Zen, what is it? Zen
Geek.
The Zen Geek. And so what do you do for Zen?
I do breath work, and I meditate every day, and I'm trying to be just as present as I can, and then really forgive myself for when I ultimately, get lost in thought.
And I used to always I still meditate every day and do my visualizations and all that, the savers, Hal Elrod savers. But something that I've just recently introduced is right before bed and doing a couple affirmations. And what a difference in my Zen going on, because I'm already preparing myself for the next day. I'm putting all my worries aside. It has been huge. I'm on like day 14 of doing this, and I have more energy when I wake up. So I'm all about the Zen. So very, very cool.
Are you going to give me your affirmation? What's your favorite affirmation?
Well, the one at night, this is, I got to pull this up on my phone because it's that good. And sorry, Hal Elrod. By the way, Hal Elrod, I love you. Come be on my show. Do you know who he is? Hal?
Of course, the Miracle Morning.
Oh my gosh, he's the best. This is what I've been saying every single night. My only objective right now is to prepare my mind and body for blissful sleep. I give myself permission to let go of all stressful thoughts. Now is not the time to worry about it or to try to solve my problems. This moment is perfect. I am safe. I am comfortable in my bed. It keeps going on, and it just really relaxes you and puts you in the right mindset. in my zen to get a good night's sleep, which being perimenopausal is not fun. So I need it. Either that or gummies.
Awesome.
All right. Oh my goodness. We totally took it a left turn there. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. And you mentioned quite a few systems, but what systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Well, I have 1,000 zaps. So if you're not using Zapier, zapier.com.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, you can use make.com too. It's very similar, but basically it's taking one application and creating an automation so it talks to the other application. And there's so many things now that can get automated. And I was just telling you,
Yes.
before the podcast, my favorite little new toy now is Serif, SERIF.ai for Gmail. So it goes in, it reads your Gmail. It's all private, by the way. Creates drafts. It'll schedule things with your calendar. It'll CC people that should be on the email. It's incredible. It's saving me an hour a day. It's the best time ever to be alive.
I cannot wait to check it out. I have it pulled up on my computer right as soon as we end here. I'm going to be checking that one out. And I love that you do all these automations because, we briefly talked about AI and how AI is writing my badassery bestowments and overuses the word ensure, by the way. I get that all. I'm like, I would never say that before. But anyway, ChatGPT. So it is definitely a way to automate more in your life, make things easier so that you have time to play charades with your kids. And as you were saying before. So Mark, I could talk to you all day because you are so much fun. But to wrap up this podcast, the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to you?
I know we don't have time, but I actually keep a note of, I know I'm successful when, and it's like 23 things. So I have a lot of definitions of what success would mean to me, but ultimately I think that it's living a purposeful life and an other focused life. So there's that book by David Brooks called The Second Mountain. And the first mountain is egoic, right? So culture says, get a good education, get a good job, get the house, get the nice car, you get all the stuff, and you get to the top of that egoic mountain, and you realize it feels empty, it's hollow. So then you go to the second mountain, and it's other focused. It's about your purpose. It's about your faith and spirituality. It's about your relationships, love and intimacy. It's about your community, your vocation. And it's a harder mountain to climb. But I think in the process of climbing that mountain, you can find, quote unquote, success.
Well, I am so grateful for you being on here and bringing your zen and your dirt and your raw land. And it is always a pleasure to have you on the show. So Mark, one more time, how do the listeners find you if they want to get into some type of coaching program and find your book? Give us all the deets one more time.
Yeah. So you've got a special link to get the book Dirt Rich for free, just pay shipping, and then thelandgeek.com. Check it out and see if this model resonates with you.
And then don't forget to start looking for Zen Geek because I cannot wait for that one. You and I are like right here. I love that. So Mark, thank you so much for being back on the show today. I really appreciate you having you come back.
Jen, anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And in another 2.5 years, we'll get you on for like episode 500 something. So you're the best, Mark. I hope you have a fabulous day. And that is all. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.